Hello Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Not the best match to comment because Alistair McKenzie, hello, how are you? The performance against Sampdoria wasn't great, right? I think probably one of the worst matches Lazio played in the last couple of years or so. Do you agree with what Inzaghi said after the match? The worst performance?
I've been thinking about this, and immediately after the match, as our Patreon users hopefully will know, who watched my post-match rant, I said that it was one of the worst performances Lazio have had under Simone Inzaghi. And 2 days later, having calmed down a little bit, not that much, I stand by that. I think it was definitely. I'm just trying to think. I mean, maybe you can help me, but I'm trying to think of a game where Lazio have been as terrible as they were in that match, because everything went wrong. The selection was wrong. The way the players played was pathetic in terms of their actual application, their attitude towards the game. They didn't defend well. They didn't create any real chances. They didn't control possession. And all of this against Sampdoria. If you're going to do that against one of the best teams in the league, then we'll maybe let you off a little bit. But against Sampdoria,
yeah,
it was terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking a little bit like Spal last year, but that was just the second half. We were up 1-0 and then we collapsed, or maybe a couple of Europe League matches. But in Serie A, the worst thing probably is that Audero didn't make any save in all the match. And, when you're down 2-0, then 3-0, not creating any single chances is simply astonishing, unbelievable, especially for a team that like Lazio that usually create a lot of chances. So, Alistair, where do we start? From the decision of Simone Inzaghi to stick with the 3-5-2, even though there were so many players missing, or to the performance of some of the key players? I would go with Simone Inzaghi's selection. I mean, there were a lot of rumors before the match that Inzaghi could have switched to a four-man defense because, let's not forget, Maruzic was out. Well, Lulic, we don't mention it because he's not even in the list. But Maruzic was out. Fares was doubtful. Lazzari is out. We know it. So really, Lazio didn't have that many options there on the wings. There were rumors that Patrick could have moved there and give some option to Inzaghi. Instead, Inzaghi decided to try Parolo on the right back. And I don't even have to complain with Parolo because it was clear it wasn't his position there. He gave the best he could do, but why not switch to another type of formation at that point?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I think that, amongst all of this fallout from the game, Marco Parolo probably doesn't deserve to be hugely criticised because he's probably as confused as the rest of us as to why he was playing at right wing back. I mean, I might as well have been playing at right wing back in that match. I mean, it just proves once again that no matter what the question is, the answer will always be Marco Parolo when it comes to Simone Inzaghi. It doesn't matter what the question is, that will always be what his conclusion is that we fill that gap with Marco Parolo.
I like it.
I mean, look, he's a 35-year-old central midfielder, and he's not played in midfield yet this season. He's played in defence. He's played at wing back. Where is he going to be next? I mean, he's either going to be in goals or he's going to be up front alongside Mariki. So, I mean, it's baffling. The thing that frustrated me the most, and this was something I said in my post-match video, was that I understand that we've got these selection problems and injury problems, but don't sacrifice everything. Don't have two players who are unnatural in those positions. Because Jevon Anderson, yes, he has played a bit as a wing back, but on the right, not on the left. He's not natural on the left. So if we have Maricic and Faris and they're not ready to play 90 minutes, well, start one of them and keep one on the bench. Don't have two players from the start who aren't comfortable in their positions. And it just set the precedent for the whole game where it was immediately obvious how much, first of all, we depend on players like Lazzari for everything, for the way we defend, for the way we attack. But also that Inzaghi is just so conservative still when it comes to his selection, and it's so frustrating because you're better off, in my opinion, if you don't have the wing backs. Why not promote a wing back? Why not play a young guy? Why don't do anything else? Change for formation is something that I think is completely gone now. It's gone. There's no way he's ever going to do that. If he's not going to have done it not even to start the game, but at any point during that game, then he's never going to do it.
The other thing I didn't understand, Alistair, is you're 2-0 down, and what you do, you put in Fares and Marusic when the match is pretty much over. So if they're fit, why didn't they start the match? If they're not fit, why are you putting them in when you're losing 2-0 and 3 days later you have a Champions League match? Very important, because obviously you're not going to recover Lazzari. So you really don't have any other options. And you bring in Marusic and Fares when you already lost. It's a big risk that they can get injured because if they're not fully fit, then why do you bring them in? Especially considering there's the Champions League coming up. That was another thing I didn't understand, honestly, from Inzaghi.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I don't necessarily agree with this whole idea of it's an easy thing for people to go to all the time is, why don't we play 4-3-3 again? Why don't we switch back to where we were right at the start of all of this with Inzaghi? Who can you give me a back four that would have been better? I don't think it exists. We wouldn't have had the players to play in a back four in that match. We don't have the options. If you're going to put Patrick at right back in a back four, he may as well play him as a right wing back. I think he probably should have in that match, rather than Parolo. It made far more sense to keep Parolo at centre back where he's already played a couple of games and put Patrick back to where he started than to throw Parolo into a completely new role. I don't think we had the resources available to switch formations there unless he's going to do something completely drastic and experimental. So I do feel like, yes, he got the selection completely wrong, but also at the same time, I don't agree with this idea that the answer is always a back four or a formation change. The thing that actually frustrated me the most was the attitude of the players. They just didn't have any fight in them at all. And when you're up against it, that's what you need. I remember tweeting during the game that, okay, wing backs aside, because at least you can understand why that's gone wrong, because they're not actually wing backs. We're losing the midfield battle. And you've got your first choice central midfield there. You've got Milinkovic, Alberto, and Lucas Leiva starting in the midfield. Where are they? Where are they? Like, what's his name? Torsby, absolutely dominating Milinkovic-Savic in the middle of the pitch, not giving him a moment on the ball. Alberto's barely able to create anything before we even get on to Caicedo and Correa. I mean, this is the point, is that it's not just about the defence and the wing-backs who are the easiest people to criticise here. There's enough quality in that team, and there are a lot of first-choice players in that team that played in that match, and none of them showed up either.
As I said in my video post-match, I said that Lazio didn't lose for the wingers. I thought Lazio could have beat Sampdoria even without Marusic and Lazzari. But the key players, and I'm talking about Luis Alberto, Milinkovic-Savic, Correa as well, they didn't perform at all. and that's not acceptable, especially because, again, Lazio wasn't playing against Real Madrid. Obviously, Ranieri is a very smart manager, and both Luis Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic were marked for all 90 minutes, every position of the field. So that created some problem for Lazio. But still, Luis Alberto should be talented enough to be able to dribble past his defender, his marker, and create chances. Again, Javan Anderson didn't play a great match, but we didn't lose for that. I really think that Luis Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic didn't perform, and that's why Lazio lost. And you can say, well, Milinkovic-Savic just came back. He played 2 matches with the national team and so on. He was tired. But what excuse can Luis Alberto have, as he didn't go anywhere? He was with the rest of the team at Formello. So that's what scares me a little bit. My impression, Alistair, is that this team hasn't got any more the motivation that they had before the COVID break. I thought before they were convinced they would win because they were a better team, and they prove it. Now they're convinced they win because they are simply Lazio, right? Without doing nothing special on the pitch. And unfortunately, it's not how it works in Serie A. You have to do something, and they're not doing it. At least they didn't do it in the last match.
No, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think there's this kind of complacency that's crept in. It was so clear when Lazio were on that 21 match unbeaten run and beating everyone, finding all sorts of ways to win, that they had that momentum and that belief that coursed through the team. But it's also been as clear that this team possesses a bit of both. It possesses the ability to create that sort of momentum and belief in team spirit, but it has the ability to do the complete opposite. And there is a group of players here whose heads can go down quite easily, and when they're up against it, they do really struggle to fight against that adversity. I don't know whether that's a lack of leadership in the team. I don't know whether that's a lack of leadership coming from the bench. I don't know what it is, but we've seen this several times. It used to be in the big games that we struggled. Then last season they managed to turn that around, but then at the expense of the European games. And now, I don't know, maybe they're missing the crowds. I don't know what it is. You know, Ciro said today in his pre-match interview before the Dortmund game that that's something that they've been missing and that they can feed off. But, you know, everyone is in the same circumstances here, and I think the thing that most fans are really struggling with, and a lot of the feedback we've had from our listeners and so on as well, has been the same, is that, you know, why is Lazio's response to this being so different from other teams? Why are Lazio the one who are struggling here? You know, everyone's in the same position. Everyone has had this break, has had this time off from competitive football, has had the same transfer market limitations, has had the same crowded fixtures schedule, you know, it has had the same lack of crowds. It's the same across the board, but for some reason Lazio seem to be the one team in Italy who are struggling more with all these problems than anyone else.
Well, one of the problem is the injury situation, and this is a big problem for Lazio because when Marusic played, he played well, but he got injured again. Now we lost Lazzari, that was one of the few players that was pretty much fit all the season long. Cataldi is not feeling well. We don't know if against Dortmund he's going to play. Leiva had a lot of problems. Luis Felipe is out. Radu is out. So Inzaghi has a list of 25 players, but really they're not 25 anymore. And this is the 4th match of the season, and already Lazio is in this situation. Inter, Milan. Nobody is in this situation, and against invented a starting 11. This is a problem because Champions League still have to start. We're not in December and say, fatigue players are fatigued, etc. So this is a big problem, and I think this is a problem starting from Iglitare. When you go and sign a player, when you go and sign Marusic, yeah, he has talent, but let's go and check his background. Is he a player that get often injured? Because since he arrived to Lazio, he has been in and out every season. Leiva is another example. Caicedo is another player who get injured, Correa, etc. You have to have availability to show it on the pitch and not create so many problems with Inzaghi.
Yeah, and this is where I think I've seen some people make the point, which I think is a good one, where Iglitare has rightly been applauded for some of the signings he's made for Lazio and some of the work he's done on a tight budget as a sporting director. But he's also shown this kind of inability to really plan for the season, to plan for what's needed in the year ahead. And yes, like I've already said, I think maybe deals for Escalante, for example, or Muriqi in the future will look back and be like, that was great business. It's too soon to say. But the one thing we can say for sure already is that regardless of that, he hasn't planned to give Inzaghi a strong enough team that he needs for what's ahead, which is the Serie A and the Champions League in a compressed season. And I mean that because the one part of the team that is the weakest is the defence, the central defence. He needs 3 of them in every game. We know that. That's not a secret. And we also know that Luis Felipe is always injured, that Stefan Radu is always injured, that Francesco Acerbi is getting older every day, even though he always plays, and that the rest of them basically aren't trusted by Inzaghi or by anyone else. And
except Patrick.
Well, exactly. So yeah. It's this failure to really plan for the situation, and it's crazy because we're 4 games into the season, and we're in a situation where Inzaghi has done his press conference ahead of our first Champions League match in 13 years against Borussia Dortmund, who are going to line up against us probably with a front 3 of Haaland, Sancho, and Royce, and we're talking about matching them with Patrick, Holt, and Acerbi, or maybe Marco Parolo. I mean, come on, how has this happened?
Well, you said we cannot talk about the transfer market of this season, but we can definitely talk about last year, and we can definitely say it has been a failure. Adekanye out on loan because he hardly had a chance of playing. Johnny rejected by Inzaghi, he's out. Vavro, it's out of every list pretty much. Inzaghi preferred to play hurt, not fit, than give a chance to Vavro. So, 3 out of 4. The only one was Lazzari, who has been a great signing, but one out of 4. A year before,
Berisha, Badel, Dermisi, you just go a year back and you see the same thing. I mean...
Yeah, one of the biggest problems is Lazio is relying on Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, Ciro Immobile. And this has been the same last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Nothing had changed. While you go and see other teams and they added every year 1 player.
One thing has changed, which is that they're all getting older.
More experience.
It's true. We're expecting every single year that all these players, and take Milinkovic Savic out of it because he's a bit younger to start with, but we're expecting the same level from all these. But it's almost like our baseline is an expectation that we have the same Acerbi every year, we have the same Radu every year, we have the same Lucas Leiva every year, we have the same Ciro Immobile every year. I'm sorry, but these guys are all in their 30s now, and it's not a secret that it becomes harder to maintain that level once you get over that. I've got over that landmark myself recently, I can say for sure things are more difficult. but but it's not exactly a secret that the older players get, the harder they're going to find it to stick to that level when they're playing 2 or 3 games a week. So that shouldn't be news to anyone who's trying to build a squad, right?
Yeah, and failing to improve the team year in and year out, like we said, last summer transfer was a disaster. Didn't help, right? Because of last year's summer transfer, we just added Lazzari. And at this point, it was better to keep Pedro Neto, because looking how things are going, well, Pedro Neto would have been a very interesting option. And this summer, yeah, we can talk about Escalante. Murici, I think he's a good signing, but I don't know if Hood really changed the team in defense. And we are lucky that we found Akpak Pro from nowhere, because it looks like he's going to be a key player for this team. But yeah, I mean, other players, maybe Andrea Pereira, when he's going to be fit, we don't know, because he disappeared pretty much. We are not.
He turned up for the Champions League team photo. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, it looks like it's a Photoshop. People are not convinced it's him, right? So, yeah, I think the biggest mistake is not adding talent to this team, and Inzaghi struggling there.
I mean, on that note, I think one of the things we need to talk about is Wesley Hoedt, who obviously came in for his debut in this game. What did you think? He's been criticised a lot in the reaction to this game, as a lot of players have. But how bad do you think it was?
Well, the thing that drove me crazy is that he did a press conference 2 days before the match, right? And said, well, I didn't play in the last 3 months. I'm not fit. But when I will be able, I'm going to give my best. 2 days later, he plays. I mean, what happened? What type of training do they do in Formello? Because, 2 days and he's fit. Then, and again, why didn't Vavro do the same training? Because, he's never fit. Vavro came back from the national team playing every single minute and played really well. So I was expecting, okay, this is going to be the last chance for Vavro. And he didn't play. So I didn't expect nothing from Hoedt because he wasn't fit. Did he make mistake? Well, the first goal, him and Acerbi as well are making a mistake. Apart from that, he didn't play so bad. I don't think, again, that Lazio lost because of Hoedt. And then he wasn't fit to play 90 minutes, so you bring in Vavro. And how can a player like Vavro can come in? He was signed last year, he hardly played. Now a new player come in who's not fit, but Inzaghi doesn't care. It's better to play Hoedt injured or not fit than give a chance to Vavro. And then after 68 minutes, Vavro come in and, is he confident? I don't think so, because he knows that the manager doesn't trust him. So I thought that was a terrible decision of team management from Inzaghi, because he lost already Vavro, because Vavro knows that the manager doesn't trust him, and played a player that wasn't fit. So I didn't think Lazio lost because of Hoedt. Obviously, he's not fit, so he couldn't play amazingly well.
Yeah, and it also damages things. It really damages Hoedt as well as a player, because he knew that there are all these doubts around him. He knows what the Lazio fans are saying about him, that there's very little faith in him, and to throw him into this game when he's not ready for it is throwing him under the bus, basically. It's a really, really harsh thing to do. I think he didn't actually play that badly. I think the criticism of him has been a bit too much for me. Because for that first goal, Marco Parolo is as much at fault for it as he is. None of the 3 defenders covered themselves in glory, all getting dragged towards the ball and leaving 2. Even if Quagliarella hadn't headed that in, I think it was Ramirez coming in as well. So two options. So it wasn't just Hoedt. I mean, he obviously was at fault for that. But before then, I thought he was actually playing very well. He was playing with a good degree of confidence. So I'm not completely, writing him off from this game for those reasons. Like you say, he wasn't really supposed to be ready for it anyway,
No.
and I don't think he played as badly as people are saying he did. Nevertheless, it did kind of typify for me the problem in the first place, which is that, the whole point is that we want to be moving on from this type of defender, which is because it was a game in the Wallace Mauricio Bastos mold, right, where you have a player who's fundamentally not that bad a defender. All of those guys are actually pretty good footballers and very good defenders on their day, but prone to making one or two bad enough errors that they can ruin a game for you. And that's what all those guys did. And that was what Wesley Ho, when he came back, was being criticised for having done previously. And in his first game, that's exactly what happened. He didn't have that bad a game, but he made one mistake that was bad enough that it punished Lazio and affected the result. I don't think that that's necessarily something that's going to have disappeared from his game in the last 2 years. So whether it's, the criticism is too much or too little or whatever, it's kind of irrelevant. I just think he's not the kind of player we really need. We should be, by now, moving on to another level of signing.
But it was the typical cheap signing that Tare wanted to do. And it looks like Inzaghi will agree with that. So Inzaghi has to take the blame as well. But Alistair, for me, probably the most concerning thing is what happened in front. Correa, he scored with Argentina. I was hoping to see a good striker. Instead, he was awful against Sampdoria. He never shot on target. And he gave me the impression Lazio created chances, but he didn't want to shot on target all the time. He wanted to dribble past all Sampdoria before finishing it. And I really don't know what happened to this player. Last year, he started not playing great football. He recovered. I remember the winning goal against AC Milan, etc. And then after COVID-19, he was another player. And we still didn't get him back. He's one of the talented players that should help Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, etc. And he's not doing it. So, I think we lost not only because of our defense, but because Correa didn't want to finish the match.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a good springboard to talk, I think, about Vedat Muriqi as well, because he's someone we're I think relying on, to be honest, now to be able to add something new, add something fresh to this attack, because like you say, Correa was disappointing, Caicedo was disappointing, but again wasn't properly fit, so he wasn't really expected to play, so give him a break. Chiro is going to come back, but I think we need Muriqi to land on his feet. I thought, he did add something when he came on, in the sense that the only chances Lazio really created in that match seemed to come off work done by Muriqi. He seemed to set up chances for others. And, when you did your Patreon video with Honor, that was something he talked about, was that he's not necessarily a guy who's going to score loads of goals for you, but he is brilliant as a team player, and he gets the best out of others and links up the attack very well. And I think that's actually as important as anything else for this Lazio team, because it's something they were really missing. And it was obvious when he came on that actually, when we were expecting him to be a target man for crosses and so on, which he will be able to do as well, he was actually coming deep and, occupying defenders and making nice passes. And he set up Correa for his chance that he hit wide. He set up Milinkovic Savic for another chance. We didn't have many chances in this game, but I think Muriqi was actually involved in the ones we did have. So I really hope that he might be able to offer something.
No, absolutely. I think he was probably the brightest spot of that match. And I still think that the rest of the team has to know him a little bit better, because there were a couple of chances where Fares had the ball and he could put it in the box and Muriqi was there. Instead, he passed it back. When probably he wasn't used to have that type of player. And so he will have to think about it next time and say, yeah, we have Murici in the box. Let's put it in because he can score and he can be very helpful. But starting from Tuesday, we hope to see a different mindset of the team. The other thing, Alistair, I hope this is the answer, is that the team wasn't used to play the Champions League and they were already focused to the Dortmund match. Maybe that's why they didn't perform that well, because as we said, Lazio didn't have experienced players that have experience of playing the Champions League. And maybe when you don't have the experience and it's the first match, you already focused to the Champions League match and you forgot, especially when you're playing against a weak team like Sampdoria, you're not focused on the Serie A match and you already concentrate on the Champions League match, and this affects your performance. I hope this is the reason why.
Well, we're going to find out an awful lot about this team on Tuesday night, I think, because Inzaghi said after the game that, it's unacceptable to lose a game like we did against Sampdoria. But the good thing is we've got another game on Tuesday, which is a very positive spin. But, he essentially said that we have a chance to put things right. And, well, we're going to find out because they need to offer something completely different on Tuesday, or they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, I was looking at the Dortmund team a bit today, and it scared me. I still feel a bit sick thinking about the attack that they have, the options that they've got, the style of football that they play. That kind of high intensity attacking football, putting pressure on our defenders is Lazio's worst nightmare, and I think that's what makes me so worried about it. I think that it's a really fundamental moment for this season almost, is if they can actually get a result in this game, that's going to be huge to actually restore a bit of confidence. Basically, just remind this team that they're actually quite good. They are. But, I mean, let's look. We're being very negative tonight on the whole, but this is a good Lazio team. This is one of the best Lazio teams we've had in the last 20 years. So
that's why I'm expecting a big performance tomorrow night against Dortmund. I think the focus will be there. That was missing Saturday. I think a lot of players will, step up and show to everybody watching that match that, hey, I'm a good player. I'm a talented player. Milinkovic Savic, Luis Alberto, the same Ciro Immobile. So I'm confident Lazio will play better. This doesn't mean that I'm confident that Lazio will win or get a point, because we are playing a great team. But I'm convinced that, and we can close it with a positive sign, that Lazio will have a better performance than against Sampdoria. You could say it's easy. It can't be that bad. Can get worse. But, I think that motivation will be there. And when Lazio play with motivation, they always perform well.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. That's why what makes it such a big game is that the motivation has to be there. There's no more motivation that you can get than to play in the Champions League. For many of these guys, for the first time in their careers, for Lazio for the first time in 13 years, fans or no fans, this is a big, big moment for everyone. And on top of that, like that in itself is big enough. But on top of that, it's the biggest game that they've got at home. Dortmund are the big team in this group, and we've got them straight away. This is an opportunity to really make a statement immediately. And if they can get a result against a team like Dortmund, that should restore a bit of confidence that they can beat teams of the amazing talent of Sampdoria in the future. So,
yeah, it's unfortunate that we cannot go to the match. This is really something that,
yeah,
I know us. But, well, let's see, Alistair, what happens on Tuesday. Let's be positive, and we're going to come back and talk about that match straight afterwards. So thanks, everybody, for the support. And again, you can follow us on iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify. And if you want to support us on patreon.com/Lazio Lounge, you can subscribe for just $2 a month. We have to thank 2 new Patreon this week. We have Drew And Robert Castelli, thanks for subscribing and become a new Patreon. We really appreciate your support. And again, guys, if you want, it's $2 a month, and you get everything from us. A new podcast every week, a post-match reaction, only for Patreons, and if when we can, special interview. So, if you want to support Lazio Lounge podcast, you know where to do it. Alzer, thank you again. I know you're very busy, and we're going to talk after Lazio Dortmund, back in Champions League after 13 years.
Looking forward to it. Cheers.
Bye.